Okay, so we'll get started here. So Luis invited me to do a locator perspective just on what we do as a locate company and just a little background into I guess behind the scenes on what locators do and how it relates to what contractors doing out in the field. Real quickly, and hopefully I can bring this window back up. Um, I guess by a show of hands here, I'm just gonna share the screen here with everybody here. By show of hands, how many are locators here? Any locators out there? Or we just have all contractors, or if anybody can raise your hand if if you're a locator, just so I can kind of have an idea who I'm talking to. Is everybody here contracting, either working for the city or maybe your own company? Okay, I'm gonna assume we probably just have a bunch of contractors out here. So I will go ahead and start showing here. Anyway, so a little bit about myself. My name is Noel. I locate for GridHawk. We locate for Pioneer Telephone only here in the state of Oklahoma. I've been with GridHawk for about 5 years. Been locating for a little over a decade now, for about a little over 10 years now. And so it's been quite the experience to be able to see the behind the scenes of what contractors do, utilities, how they run, getting to know the industry. I've been before locating, I was in the oil field industry, and I did that for a good bit, kind of in and out of that and construction and whatnot. And so it's pretty neat to see the behind the scenes of what all from water, sewer, fiber. Um, I mean, anything you can think of, obviously construction related. There's other things that pick up during the dig season. And so I'm just going to give my perspective on what locating is and how it pertains to what you all, and just a little bit behind the scenes. I'm going to kind of skip through some of these a little bit, go through them a little bit quickly. So what does a locator do? So, real quickly, locator, we receive the 811 ticket. You all call it in, homeowner calls it in. We receive that ticket and we have to understand the scope of the ticket. One of the most important parts of locating is understanding the scope of the work and marking buried utilities. Pretty plain and simple. And then, of course, there's a lot of other things that go behind the scenes, but I think those three bullet points kind of define what we do as a locate company whenever we get that ticket. A little bit of tools of the trade. So if nobody locates here, just have a idea of what we do here. So here's equipment, some locate equipment that we use. Our company uses Vivax. That's the black and yellow locator, and I have experience with the Vivax with RD, which is a radio detection. That's the blue equipment, and there's another green one called a subsite. So there's various forms of locating. There's we use our phone to get around directions. We have a computer for where we receive our tickets, and we have to understand the maps of the utilities that we locate. A little bit about our day, how our day starts. We route our tickets, um, and we chart the course and we get going. So the very plainly, most of our day for today began yesterday as far as our route. Towards the end of the day, we start looking at what ticket we're going to hit next and what ticket we're going to go start first. And so we begin building our route today. So today, I'm kind of I'm operations manager here, so I oversee a bunch of our locators. But whether I'm still going out in the field, as actually right now as it is, I had to step aside from the other locators. We have about two other people. We're marking a project for Pioneer Telephone. It's probably about maybe 6 to 8 miles roughly, and so we're marking that right now. And so I'm stepping aside to hop on this call, but it's pretty neat to be able to. I mean, I wish you guys could see what we're doing out here, but there's all kinds of stuff out here to account for, whether it be fiber, whether it be copper, and then there's everybody else. I know the cities out here too, marking their water lines. And so, like I said, the day today is we're already looking at tomorrow's tickets and how we're going to route it in for tomorrow. Um, Kind of building a nice route for the next day. Um, our day. our bucket or our board, what our computer looks like, it might look like this. These are all white tickets. That just means they're already completed, but this might be something that somebody might come across on their board on what they have to do. And so we try to cluster our stuff together just to try to be a little more efficient with with our tickets and our time. And obviously, priority tickets come into play, emergencies, non-compliance, that kind of stuff may pop up and may reroute us, and we'll just have to change course. But we try to be in a closer area to try to get stuff done a little bit quicker and stay ahead of the tickets. As far as Gridhawk as a company, we do pretty good um, with our what's it called, the our on time percentage. I think, oh gosh, we're above I think we're above a 95% for the last month, I want to say. And so we do pretty good staying on top of our tickets. We don't have too many tickets we're having to reschedule or push back. We're usually staying on top of that, and communication is key there, obviously. Calling the contractor and if we're having to reschedule or something like that. And hopefully there's not too many of those just to keep you guys out in the field and going about your work. Arriving on site. So, we park on site, put our cones out. Um, and again, we read and understand the ticket, read the maps of utilities, and we start locating. Um, I'm going to skip a little bit here. Does everybody see this address? It's 1113 Creekdale. And by a show of hands, can anybody tell me, let's say somebody calls in a ticket here for this address. Let's say they call in a fence ticket. We have just north of 1113, there's 1117. On the east side, there's 1106, 1102, 1020, and 1107. Which houses do you think I'm going to have to, let's say I'm marking phone in the back here. Which houses am I going to have to access in order to mark for 1113? Does anybody have any idea by show of hands here? Or anybody have any idea as far as is it just a few houses? What does anybody think? Any takers? Anybody want to put anything in the chat?
Lori has something in the chat has 1117 and maybe 1107.
1117 and 11. That's very good. Yeah, for sure. I will definitely have to access those houses. Another thing to consider as you're calling these tickets in, I'm also going to have to verify 1020, and I'll just go to the next slide. These are all the houses I'll have to access to verify everything. Nothing is in conflict with this house because I'm also having to check the house fence here, the fence here, and fence here. That's only three fences in the backyard. But the thing about these services and mains, I might have a pedestal on the back of two. So I'll have to drive out of the property, out of this neighborhood, come back around to Briar Creek, go into 1106, go into house number two, property number two, access the ped. And let's say that main, I do a sweep and my main crosses into address one and then goes south. Well, now I have to go back out of Briar Creek, come back around to Creekdale, go back into 1113, and then pick up that main that crosses the backyard. That's just for the main. And then I do the same thing for the services. Let's say my service comes out of property number two. I'm gonna have to do the same thing. Go back Briar Creek, go to ped number two, or the property number two, and that service is usually for us typically follows the main, and then it breaks off and goes to the house in the backyard. But one thing we also got to consider that just accounts for property number six. Um, what I'm also going to have to do is verify property number five. Where's the service come from, and does it conflict in this backyard? If it does, it's probably coming out of this ped, and it's going to go south, and then it goes into number five. So I'm going to have, and it may come out, back south of this address four. So there's so many hookups I'm going to have to do just to do this one ticket. And that's just one utility. And thankfully we just have one utility to mark. But if I were to have to do phone, gas, electric, this one ticket for a fence replacement just got really difficult. And so this is one of those kind of nightmare tickets that if you're having to mark a lot, it can get pretty chaotic, especially if there's no rear easement to walk through. If it's just all fenced in together and you can't walk through anything. Just some things to think about as you call in tickets. I've seen a lot of tickets get called in, locate full property and adjoining easements, and all they're going to do is plant a tree in the backyard. So really, all they need is a 5 foot radius, a 10 foot radius of a flag for a tree install. But they'll call in full property and adjoining easements. At that point, I have to mark full property and adjoining easements just because it's legally the dig ticket, and we mark the legal dig ticket just for liability reasons. But that may add another hour and a half to my day when it could have been marking the service line and been done with it. So just some things to think about as you're calling in tickets to help us get through the ticket quicker and get to your next ticket. Just defining the scope. White lining, that's another big thing. Putting a flag down on the property, whatever the case is. Uh, just something to think about as you're going through there. But here's some prints, and this isn't even our prints. This is just a little snippet of prints I found online. But this is just to give you an example of all the services, all the mains that may come in conflict with the ticket you call in. There's a lot more that goes behind the scenes that you may not see. But there may be a lot more in conflict with your stuff than what you have to than what you're thinking of. And so, as soon as it touches that easement, we're marking it. Whether we think it might be in the way or not, we're going to mark it just to be safe. We always try to add a cushion of 25 feet to our locates just to give you guys a little bit of better understanding of where everything goes. And one thing we always say is prints are just a guide. That they're not 100%. We have to go out there and verify everything that's on the map. Just some common challenges is weather. At the time I was writing this up, we were having the tornadoes, and that was a pretty big, tornado season, and all the hail and rain and all that stuff. Those are always things that add to the time of the locate. Stuff to think about whenever you're calling in tickets is what's the weather like? Are we going to be affected on the county roads? Some county roads that we get tickets on, we don't even go down. We'll call the contractor and say it's inaccessible because we don't want to get stuck and then have to call a tow truck and try to get somebody else out there. So just some stuff to think about, maybe putting that on the notes. I've seen some pretty good tickets called in. Contractors will call in and locate during rain, and they'll say, enter from the North County Road going south because it's rocked, or careful going this direction. You can add those notes to your ticket as you call it in. You can either do a special note when you call it in, or you can type it on the ticket. If you submit a ticket online, you can type it in there. It's a good time to put anything like that on there. Hopefully you've never been in this situation, but that's the kind of thing we want to avoid is maybe put that stuff in the notes. Hey, there's a wet spot where you don't want to sink into. Communication is key. That's the number one thing we do with locating and contractors is communicate with y'all what any kind of issues we may have found. Maybe we had some. I had one here a couple of days ago. One of our contractors called and said they couldn't find our fiber, and I went out there to verify the fiber, and they potholed probably 10 feet on top of it. I hooked up again, and it was right where we had marked it. It was just deeper than 10 feet, and so that's where communication. I give my phone number out to everybody, and I'm always available to call for anybody to call whenever there's any kind of issues. Um, and that's something good to think about too. Is do you have your local locator's number? That's something to collect. You see those locators out there on your ticket, go talk to them, go reach out. Most of them know that when there's better communication, there's less chance of something getting hit. And so I'm always giving my number out if anything happens. Um, why locating matters, obviously, protecting life and property, infrastructure, one of the main things, and that's to keep everybody safe. Prevents costly damages, service outages, keeps projects moving safely and efficiently. I would say that the life and property, obviously, you guys who are the ones actually digging on it. We want to make sure our gas is marked properly, the electric. And I don't have the pictures on this one, but I shared on our safety day in Oklahoma City with the class that we had a contractor here about a week last week. They dug prior to the expiration date. Their ticket was due the next day at 8, and they started digging the day before, like in the evening, and our locator showed up to mark it. And we have till 8 a.m. We can show up at 7 a.m. and still be good as long as we close the ticket before 8. But we usually try to have them done at least by the end of the day. That's what time we have on the ticket. And so he showed up and they were already digging. They had drilled probably within 6 inches to 12 inches on multiple spots of our fiber and not even realizing that the fiber was back there, even though there's lines, there's signs, there's PEDs, and they just didn't put two and two together. There was buried electric, primaries, secondaries. I don't know that there was gas. So much stuff out there, and it's just not worth the risk. Hitting some gas main, hitting a primary. Definitely don't want to hit electric. So there's all kinds of stuff out there. Better to wait until the tickets actually due than to be liable for something that might get hit. So our stuff, our fiber, depending on what you hit, I mean, it can be upwards. We've had multiple hits that were $10,000 and up, just depending on the size of the fiber. If somebody either digs before the ticket's due, and we've had stuff where they completely just dig without a ticket. That was one that we had where they hit a fiber that wasn't marked, and they didn't ever call the ticket in, so we never knew to go mark it, and that was upwards of $10,000. So definitely something that would take out any profit you would have on a small job. So, but that's all I have, Luis. I don't know if there's I don't want to minimize the screen again, but I don't know if there's any other questions, Luis, if you want to tell me if anybody raises their hand or if anybody has any input, anything else they want to bring up. Maybe a perspective from the contractor side to us, you know.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, please leave it on the chat or take the moment real quick to just ask Noel directly and so he can respond the question. Anything else, Noel, that you want to add or just want to wait if anybody has
Oh man,
a
you know
comment
though that's probably the main stuff is I'd say what I covered. I didn't want to take up
or
too
what?
much time with everybody, but yeah, I mean, you know, scope of work was a big one. I think just calling in what you need and narrowing down what you need. You know, like those big tickets can get pretty nasty when you have rear easements with a lot of utilities, and for us it's not as bad. For other companies, you know, USIC, other companies that do multiple locates, I mean, for them it can become a nightmare if they're having to locate multiple utilities all for just a small little radius, you know, for whatever the case is. um, a lot of times, maybe you might call it a full intersection when all you need is the northeast corner of the intersection. So just little stuff like that, narrowing down where you're going to be, because I might have something on the whole intersection that's going to have multiple access points. When if you just need the northeast corner, that might be clear. So there, just things like that when you call in tickets can really help out our job to move quicker and to get to the next ticket, so everybody else can get their stuff marked in time.
Thank you, Noel Rojas from Great Hawk, for a great presentation about perspective of a live locator. We'll see you guys after lunch at 1. For those who want to join the excavation and trenching safety, presented by Anderson Safety in this OK11 virtual safety day that we are having today. So we'll see you guys in a little bit.